mean, the stock market's down over 50%. And gold isn't. I mean, gold's off 10% for its high recently. It looks like it wants to go back there. So what has been the best investment? It's been gold and silver, not everything else.
And yet they're telling everybody, I'm just not too sure about that gold. I'm not too sure about commodities. I would stay with... No, they're not buying into the market. You know, I like it when they say to them, now, what are you doing about your portfolio? And, of course, they do the humana thing and disclosure. Well, I should disclose, blah, blah, blah. But they never tell you what they're doing with their money. They probably don't tell you that they got the next flight on the plane over to the Bahamas to get it out of this country. We're going to be right back after this 4-minute break. Our guest today is the Bob Chapman. He's always on top of his game. TheInternationalForecaster.com. Call 877-479-8178 to get a gratis copy. Check it out yourself. We'll be right back, and we'll find out what he's telling his people now. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. This is Dave.
And Joyce, and I thank you for joining us in the Power Hour today, along with Bob Chapman. Bob Chapman is the editor of the International Forecaster newsletter. You can get a copy of it by going to TheInternationalForecaster.com, asking for a gratis copy. Say, I want to review this because I heard it on the Power Hour, and I want to see if this is the real deal. And you will get an umpteen-page report on what he feels is about to take place. And it usually turns out to be almost all accurate. In fact, the next scheduled issues, well, at least he's had an issue on the 14th of March, 18th, 21st, March 25th, and March 28th. Now, if you missed all those, you missed out because you could have been subscribing to the International Forecaster newsletter. Here's an example of what he says. Now, Bob, I just want to address this because in your newsletter, you said the masters of the universe have lost control, number one, and the biggest scam in history is being played out. Now, obviously, you are not getting Christmas cards from Wall Street any longer. I can assure you of that probably. But you're saying some pretty pointed things toward what's happening in the financial sector of this country.
Now, that's correct. And, we call them as we see them, and unfortunately, we've been correct. And, of course, 20 years ago, Wall Street was very happy to get rid of me because what we're seeing now has been coming for a long time. It's just that this is a culmination period when everything's just going to start falling apart at the seams, which it's already done. And we'll continue to see the desperate attempts at propaganda that we see on television. 60 Minutes last night was a good example of that. And all of the misinformation that we get on CNN.
Oops, sounds like we lost him. We're going to try to get him back here for us. Let me just also say that...
it's not going to solve it. The system has to be purged. And
All right, let's go ahead and get him back again on a different line then, John. Thank you very much. He says the biggest scam in history is being played out. The propaganda has people simply buried in the market, and they will never get out. In fact, Bob Chapman says, we as yet have had nothing like a selling climax. The entire savings of those people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s are being wiped out before their eyes. We do not know of one pension plan, mutual fund, or hedge fund that got out of harm's way. That is striking. Now, he really says it like it is. On television, what are they telling you? Well, you know that monthly little thing that you get from your investor to tell you how your money is doing? Don't read it. Just put it aside. Don't read it. Don't watch the Dow. Yeah, right. Let it come crashing down around your shoulders, and then everybody can go have a nervous breakdown and jump out of buildings. That's exactly what they're talking about, is don't even watch what's happening to you, because there's nothing you can do about it, except go and get an SSRI drug from your doctor, which is increasing in this country, and is thus going to be increasing the violence, if you ask me, Dave.
We talked about that in the last hour. I think that's what Gerald Celente was alluding to, the simple fact that here in the United States, we have more depression than anywhere else in the world, and that's indicated, of course, by all the different SSRI drugs that people take. And when people take SSRI drugs, well, we know that in many cases, the overwhelming majority of cases, people end up becoming violent. And as Celente had said, when people lose everything, they lose it all. And I think that this is being played out right now, the simple fact that we have military that are being deployed here in the States. Remember that shooting that had, well, you were out of town.
Yeah, I did hear about that, yes.
In Georgia, yeah, the 9 people were killed. Yeah, but the aftermath is that U.S. troops were posted in the streets. I mean, this is not right. There's something desperately wrong in Mudville.
Yes, and the one that happened in Germany, of course, they released that there was prior knowledge on a website, but then they came back and said, oh, never mind. When we get back at the bottom of the hour now, we're going to talk also to Ted Anderson and find out if there's anything left to invest in. And then I'm going to ask Bob Chapman, what is this Glass-Steagall Act? What is the importance of it? Because so many people refer to it on the talking head financial shows. Glass-Steagall Act. We'll be back with Bob Chapman and Ted Anderson after this 3-minute break. Stay tuned.
I hear Fred Flintstone feet in there. People running from all of their IRAs and their retirement accounts. For those of you that got out of the market in September, good for you. Welcome back to the Monday edition of the Power Hour. This is Dave.
And Joyce, I thank you for joining us in the Power Hour today and supporting the Power Hour. I'm going to get back to our guest today, Bob Chapman. I'm going to take some phone calls. I'm going to open up the phone lines. If you would like to talk to Bob Chapman, if you have a question, 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. And I want to go back to Bob Chapman. We lost him a little bit earlier. He's back on the line now, but I wanted to ask him about this Glass-Steagall Act. It's mentioned so often on television when the talking pundit financial heads speak. But what is the purpose, or what is the importance, perhaps I should ask, of Glass-Steagall Act?
During the Depression, it was found that the combination of banks being in the brokerage business caused a lot of excesses. And those excesses were part of what led to the collapse of the stock market and the American economy. So in 1932, they passed Glass-Steagall, which is the name of 2 congressmen, and that put a wall between the brokerage firms and the banks. The banks had to get rid of all their brokerage firms. And it was like that until 1999 when Senator Graham decided that he was going to get a bill passed on behalf of Wall Street to get rid of Glass-Steagall so they could go out and loot the American public again. And that's essentially what it is.
But why is it important to us to hear about this, or why do they keep talking about it on the air? They'll say that, Glass-Steagall didn't work, or go ahead.
It did work, and that's why the Wall Street doesn't want it back. They want to be able to swing their cutlasses like pirates and do anything they want, and Glass-Steagall stops them from doing that. And that's how we had Enron and many of the other fiascos that we've had over the past years. And so Glass-Steagall needs to be reenacted. It's an extremely important piece of legislation. And until we have that reenacted, there's not going to be any recovery.
Okay. Well, let's talk about where we're headed right now, because it does not look good. What is the stock market up about 70 points today? I don't know if that's good or bad. Bring us up to date on what's happened with gold and silver lately.
Well, this morning when we get on the air, it was up off $5. It went up to a minus 13.50. It's trading now around minus 11.50. And it's a typical Monday morning. The U.S. government's in there driving gold down and pushing the market up. And the government, of course, wants the Dow Jones Industrial Average and other stocks to go higher, making people think that everything's okay. And this is the kind of markets that you have, economy that you have, when you have a corporatist fascist government. And that's exactly what we've got. The government should not be in the market manipulating it. Even though by executive order they can legally do that, they shouldn't be doing it. And And that's something Congress would have to take into consideration and pass legislation to stop that. But as long as that's going to go on, we're going to have the gyrations that we have. And people should use this opportunity if they're in retirement funds, pension funds of one form or another, IRAs, and insurance policies, annuities, where large amounts of shares are being held. What they should be doing is moving out of those vehicles and going into gold and silver-related assets.
Let me go to Dave in Texas. Dave in Texas, you're on with Bob Chapman. Go ahead, please. Question or comment?
Good morning, Joyce. Good to talk to you again.
Hi there.
And good
Thank
to talk
you.
with Bob again. I have a couple of comments and a quick question for Bob. I was going to say I completely agree that we need to bring back Glass-Steagall. It was wrong to take it off the books. We need to bring it back. I, for one, also think we need to enforce still the Sherman Antitrust Act instead of having all these concentration of these large conglomerate businesses.